Hey guys, this is Butch, and I want to welcome you to another Memory Monday. I am here at the Hamburg Shopping Center in Lexington, Kentucky. And once we get into our story today, hopefully you will see, even though I'll probably go ahead and explain why we're here. But stick with us while we learn a new story together. So our story today takes place in a busy city, and in a busy part of the city. There's a man named Bartimeus who's a blind beggar, you know, if you think about it, a beggar is going to set up at a place where there's as much traffic as possible so they can get as much business as possible. Now, this is the story, and I'm going to read it from the New King James Version, and then we'll go through it again, and I'll show you some of the things that, as I'm preparing this story, I'll actually be doing this story next week at a class that I'll be participating in at Dallas Theological Seminary. So as I'm preparing this story in a way that I would be willing to share it or want to share it. Again, one of the things we do when we're working on a story is we want to maintain accuracy, but we also want to be conversational. So as I read this story, I want you to listen and see if you can find those places that might sound just a little strange to the modern ear, right? And see what it is you might change. And then as we go through it together, see if we found the same things. So here's our story out of Mark chapter 10, verses 46 through 52. Now they came to Jericho. As he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great multitude, blind Bartimeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the road begging. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Then many warned him to be quiet, but he cried out all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." So Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. Then they called the blind man, saying to him, "Be of good cheer, rise, he's calling you." And throwing aside his garment, he rose and came to Jesus. So Jesus answered and said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said to him, "Rabboni, that I may receive my sight." Then Jesus said to him, "Go your way, your faith has made you well." And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus on the road. Now, did you find some places there as you were listening to the story? So let's walk through it again. Now they came, do you remember the name of the city? Yeah, Jericho. And normally I would not do that in a lead through, but we're working on this as just the beginning stages. As Jesus went out of Jericho with who was he with first? Yeah, his disciples and a great multitude. Now I'm curious, if you were in conversation, if you and I were having a conversation and there were a bunch of people, would you say, "Oh wow, that is a great multitude"? Or would you say it's a big crowd? Does that change the meaning at all? Yeah, so as I was working on this story, I would probably say great crowd. Blind Bartimeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the road begging. Now, just for entertainment, Bartimeus, we know from other places in Scripture, not necessarily the Greek or the Hebrew, but Bar is son of. So his name is son of Timaeus, which I like digging in there when I'm doing this story. He sat by the road begging. Now, there are some translations that say Bartimeus he was a beggar, but I really like the old writer's adage that you show, don't tell. And so for me, as I'm telling this story, I would be more apt to stick with he sat by the road begging. And when he, and I'm going to make that Bartimeus, heard that it was who? Do you remember? Jesus, of Nazareth, known not by his last name, but by his location. Bartimeus began to cry out and say, Jesus, and then he used a title. Do you remember what it was? Son of David, have mercy on me. By the way, if I was doing the volunteer or the lead-through in a story, I would not do all the interruptions that I'm doing with you guys. So then many warned him to be quiet. Now, warned him to be quiet. Is that something you would, we warned our child to be quiet. Would you say warn him to be quiet, or told him to be quiet, or shushed him, something along those lines? But he cried out all the more, Son of David, have mercy on me. So Jesus stood still. Now, remember, Jesus is walking. So would you say stood still, or maybe stopped? Yeah. And he said what? Yeah, call him to me. He commanded him to be called. And I would want that commanded in there, even though that might not be the way I would tell the story. And then they called the blind man, saying, be of good cheer. Yeah. And then they said, rise. He's calling you. Now there, I would say, cheer up, get up. Right? That's the same thing, but it's much more conversational. And so, what did he do? Yeah, he threw aside his garment, he got up, and he came to Jesus. And that action there of throwing off the garment, I don't know about you guys, but that really helps me with this story. And Jesus answered him and said to him, he asked him a question. Remember what it was? What do you want me to do for you? I think it's one of the strangest questions in all the Bible. Like, really? I mean, really? This is... and the blind man said to Jesus, he used a title. Yeah, Rabboni, Rabbi, that I may receive my sight. And so there, that I'd receive my sight, that I'd be able to see. Now, here is a little bit of a translation issue, because some translations say, a few translations say that I might be able to see again. But it's really hard as you get into the various translations, it's really hard to prove that. And I actually talked to a friend of mine who majored in languages at a seminary, and he wasn't comfortable with going there, and so I just leave it as it is. Then Jesus said to him, go your way. Your what has made you well? Yeah, your faith. And then it took a while for his sight to be restored, right? Oh, that's right, immediately. And for me, that little snapping of the fingers whenever I have the word immediately, that helps me. And he did what? Yeah, he received his sight and he followed Jesus. It says on the road. Others, the word there is hadas, can mean road, but it can also mean way. And so I would have to weigh that out. I go to several different translations, because usually when I tell this story, I say he followed Jesus on the way, because that was originally what Christianity was called early in the Gospels. It was called the way. And so, that kind of leaves that, did he just follow him on the road, or was there something a little bit more significant happening there? And so that's what I would do as I went through the story. Now again, what I've done here is I have a different version, and I've looked at both these versions. One, the New King James, a little bit more traditional version, and another, the CSB, which is kind of my go-to version for a more modern version when it comes to the story. But I do check, because some of the translation stuff I'm not real super comfortable with, just to be up front. And so, you know, you want to be careful, and you want to go through there and see not only what is more conversational, not only what makes the most sense, but what's the most accurate. Because that's an important step. And so, you know, hopefully this will help you. We're going to be looking at this story as we go through the week. I'll be gone in a couple of weeks, and not real sure that I'm going to have time to do stories, so I'm trying to get ahead a little bit. If you've not subscribed to the channel, I am so close to having 100 subscribers, which, you know, I follow Peter McKinnon online. He's got like 4 million or something like that. I'm obviously not an internet influencer, but the more of these you have, the more it helps with some of the algorithms and stuff that they use. So if you've not subscribed yet, that'd be a personal favor. I'd appreciate it. But until the next time, keep on telling those Bible stories.